the name of the book. It's called Fire and Fury, The Maui Fires, published on August 10th, 2023, with eyewitness accounts of how this fire was caused by climate change. How was the book published on August the 10th when the fires just started a few days before? Welcome to the Father Leo Show, where we are dishing out faith, culture, and commentary. And this week I want to talk to you about conspiracy theories, because it's so funny when people call somebody a conspiracist. What I want to do is, first of all, talk about what the word means, and then its modern implications. And then I want to kind of share with you several examples of how some people were called conspiracy theorists, but they were just actually telling the truth. And then I want to talk about a few modern day conspiracy theories. And then finally, what can we do to survive a world where we know that there are conspiracies to do harm to us as a human race, and certainly to our Catholic faith? So right now, we always consider conspiracy theories to be a plotting of evil to do harm to others. And you do that in a group setting. So you're part of a conspiracy. But actually what the word really means, it's to breathe with one another. That's what it means. Con with spirare, which means to breathe together. And the reason why it's been seen as negative is because there have been, unfortunately, groups of people who are kind of a bird of the feather that flocks together, and they want to do bad things. But conspiracy theories really are not bad at all. What they want is for them to be a recognition of what is true with what is being actually purported as true. You can see one pursuing truth, and then the other group is presenting or purporting something that's true, and something just doesn't jibe. So here are some examples of how some people have been accused of being conspiracists or conspiracy theorists, but these were actually true. The US government stole bodies from Hiroshima and Nagasaki after the bomb to test radioactivity in dead people. The government said, that's just not true. That's conspiracy theory. Nope, it's true. During the Prohibition in the 1930s, people were getting sick drinking alcohol because the Prohibition didn't want people to drink alcohol. So the theory was the government actually putting poison in alcohol? And the answer is yes. The government was lying to people. That could be harmful or even deadly to people drinking alcohol, because they wanted to tell you that drinking alcohol was bad. Now, it can be bad, but I just think that the more honest and educated we are about a topic, the less conspiratorial we have to be. Here's another one. When Woodrow Wilson had a stroke, did his wife Edith actually make a lot of executive decisions? People said, oh, that's just conspiracy theory. The vice president did all that. The actual answer is no, the first lady did. So here's an interesting one. I like this. Was there an actual effort or a program by the government to control people's minds and behavior? That sounds like a conspiracy. Well, no, it's called the MLK Ultra program. And it was actually true that the government, the CIA, was using LSD as well as hallucinogenics to experiment on behavior modification. And let me just give you a final one, because there's just so many. I mean, I was just doing a brief research on conspiracy theories that are actually true. This one cracked me up a little bit. Canada, in the 1960s, their government actually tried to create a Gaydar, a type of a program to determine if someone was homosexual in the military because at the time in 1960s, Canada just didn't approve of homosexuality. My has time changed now. It's so interesting that conspiracy theories not only are proven true, but they've actually almost evolved because I think that there are programs to try to convert people, namely children, into an acceptance on a generic level or even a personal level, homosexuality. You take, for example, uh, the drag queen transgender story time reading, where they're telling kids stories dressed and being what I would call morally inappropriate while doing so. Could you imagine if I, as a Catholic priest, wanted to do story time for children and read books of the Bible? It's so funny that there was someone interviewing a young woman on the street. At least I thought she was a woman. She might have identified otherwise. I think that the whole confusion in identity has been a part of the education system. You might call me a conspiracy theorist, but I think that there's a lot of facts that can point to that. But ask this person, do you think that it's okay for children to transition? And the person says, yes, of course. And then he said, into Christians. And the woman was like, no, never mind.
So do you think it's okay to transition children
Yeah.
to Christianity?
No.
You can see, in a sense, we are all being brainwashed. Our minds are manipulated. Are conspiracy theories real? And are people putting tinfoil on their heads? I'm not asking you to do that. I think the point of this particular monologue is just to get you to become more critical thinking. Let's just kind of go through some of the more practical things that I've encountered now in the modern age where people would accuse me of being a conspiracy theorist. Let's just take, for example, the ugly reality of the year 2020. Wow. I just think of 2020. That was a time for us to try to look at the world with 2020 vision, but we didn't. We just bought everything hook, line, and sinker with what the world was telling us, even if the world was conflicted in what they were saying and what they were doing. There were government leaders telling us that we had to lock down, yet they were out and about at parties. They forced everyone, including children, to wear masks because they said that it was going to protect you. We know that it didn't, and anyone who challenged that notion, including doctors, almost lost and some of them did lose their medical license. We know, for example, that the COVID vaccine was helpful to some people, but we were forced to believe that it was good for everyone, to the point where that they didn't even tell people of the adverse side effects, including the possibility of death. Let me give you this example, because this actually came from the parliamentary questions for the EMA, the European Medical Agency, where they discovered that in a study on December 8th, 2022, that over 50,000 deaths were caused by the vaccine. However, the EMA only reported 11,000. You can see how there's something kind of fishy here, where we would focus on people who tested positive for COVID, but we didn't pay attention to anyone literally passing out on a sports field or on a comedy show or even on air, just passing out after getting the COVID vaccinations. Now, I know that this is a very difficult topic, and please don't think I'm taking sides. I'm asking people to not buy into conspiracy theories by becoming more in our critical thinking ability. I want to give you one final one here, because this is something that's kind of touched my heart just recently. We all know about the fires that destroyed a beautiful part of Hawaii. So that happened around, August, the middle of August. But interestingly enough, Amazon has a book that was published on August the 10th, 2023, which was smack dab in the middle, or at the crisis point for the people in Lahaina in Maui. What was the name of this book? It was called Fire. What name is the name of the book? It's called Fire and Fury by Dr. Miles Stone. The story of Maui, the Maui fires, published on August 10th, 2023, with eyewitness accounts of how this fire was caused by climate change. Okay, how was the book published on August the 10th when the fires just started a few days before? By the way, this same author is one who wrote a book about how Hunter Biden, President Biden's son, was an example of heroism overcoming challenging and adversities in his life. What's going on here? Why is it that the government in Hawaii, the local government, are preventing FEMA from actually providing support for the people? And by the way, this isn't coming from me. This is coming from the people in Hawaii. And why is it that all of Lahaina was just burned down to the ground, but trees were not? If you even just see Google images of Lahaina after the fires, they actually show trees as well as umbrellas at a bar and telephone poles that have not, wooden telephone poles that aren't burned to the ground. Knowing that just a few weeks prior, they were trying to hold summits on how they can turn that part of Maui into a smart city, and that for years, investors had been trying to buy the land of the natives who lived there, and they refused to sell it. A fire starts, and now the governor is talking about how they're going to rebuild the city the way they want it to be rebuilt, as a smart 15-minute city. Yet, the houses of the rich people, no fires were wild enough to touch their property. I don't say this to be critical of anyone. I say this so that we can become critical thinkers. There's a big difference. I'm just asking questions. And if people get offended by the questions, then maybe they're trying to push a narrative. And in calling me a conspiracy theorist, they are, in a sense, using an appeal to authority, that somehow they're smarter than I am, that they are smarter than you because your questions are stupid questions. That's what people are doing when they call you a conspiracy theorist. Can I say that there are some people who believe some really crazy things? Yeah, for sure. So how do we avoid this? Well, here's how. One, especially when it comes to the faith, because some people think that we have a conspiracy, that we believe an invisible man in the sky. First of all, you gotta know what you're talking about. You gotta really do your research. And research does require asking questions. So don't be afraid to ask questions, even to authorities. They might shut you down, but you gotta do it. That's what investigative journalism used to do. They don't do that anymore. The second thing is, make sure you're talking to sane people, people who you respect that don't always agree with you. Make sure you're surrounding yourself with intelligent people who can challenge your way of thinking. And then finally, this is going to sound silly, but this is what I try to do. Pray about finding the truth to any subject, because I guarantee you, the more you are able to talk to God, that invisible man in the sky, he is the knowledge of all things. He knows that his son was killed because of a conspiracy, that Jesus was somehow going to overtake the temple. You can see that conspiracy theories have been a part of faith, as it's been part of politics, as it's a part of life. Don't buy into them, but instead, make sure that you can breathe together with the pursuit of truth versus what people are telling you is true. And when you do that, you're no longer going to be a conspiracy theorist. You're going to be following what I would call the intellectual pursuit. In fact, Saint Anselm told us, fides querens intellectus, faith seeks understanding. Avoid being conspiracy theorists by faithfully seeking the truth. I hope that this offers some perspective on a very controversial topic. I want to also say that I'm praying for people who are affected negatively because they were willing to ask questions, especially journalists who are being shut down because they're asking the questions that some people are afraid to reveal the answers. I also am praying for the recovery and the rebuilding of Hawaii and all places that are experiencing disasters naturally and perhaps even unnaturally. Thank you for listening. I hope that this conversation was helpful to you in dealing with all of the craziness regarding conspiracy theories. I'd love to hear from you. Please leave a comment and tell us what your craziest conspiracy theories are, or ones that you thought were but have been proven true. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Support us on our Patreon community, because with your help, we can continue to dish out faith, culture, and commentary. Avoid the crazy conspiracy theories, but more importantly, seek the truth as we continue together to dish out faith, culture, and commentary. God bless you, and stay hungry for God.